What's up, everybody? James and John here on episode 3.
3 episodes already, John?
What? I can't believe it. We're so excited about this show because this show is going to talk about production. Are you doing the things to make your production successful? We're happy to have in the lab, the Digital Media Lab today, Kelvin Co. He's the creative pastor at the Oaks Fellowship Church in Red Oak, Texas. All that and more when we start.
Technically speaking.
Well, James, it is so exciting to be here today for this episode because this is one I've been looking forward to for quite a while. A few months ago, I wrote a blog on the 3 keys, the 3 ways to make your production or your event more successful. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and I feel like that if you do not put the right ingredients and mix them right, that product, whether it's a pie or a cake or anything that you do, if you don't mix that up correctly, then it's not going to taste as good as it should, and it won't be as presentable as it should. And in our world, it's all about presentation. Absolutely. So today we're talking about production, and there are 3 phases that I feel are very important that we divide things into in buckets per se, and that's pre-production, production, and post-production. So in pre-production, it's all about the plan.
Right.
So what do you do? Think about that. What do you do to create your plan? That's one of the largest keys in our rotation, in the way we work, because we do 1,000+ events a year, and we don't have a whole lot of time to plan, but we have to plan. Right. We find that when we don't plan, man, what is the old saying? If you fail to plan,
you plan to fail.
Plan to fail, and we have found that to be very, very true. So today we have Kelvin Co in the studio. There is a full interview that we've already done with him, and that will be posted on the website, and you can view that in its entirety. Beware, it's about an hour long. But we've taken some of that and cut it up and presented some questions, some ideas, some philosophies, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about that and then let him interrupt us in that interview and cut those things out. Right. And the first thing is pre-production, planning.
You have to plan.
Have to plan. What's the importance to you, James? What is so good about planning?
Well, when you plan, everyone in their position knows what they're supposed to do. If you don't plan, people show up when you get to your production. They show up, they start doing this, and you go, "Why are you doing that? You're supposed to do this." Well, no one told me. How many times have you heard that? Well, no one told me what to do.
That's right.
And when you have a plan, from the top down, everyone knows what they're supposed to do. You have what is a power, and that is you can create one cohesive story, one cohesive production, whatever it is you're working on. And when you have a cohesion and a unity, you're able to do a lot more.
That's exactly right. And I'll be the first one to confess to you, I am very organizationally challenged. I have a good team around me that is better at it than I am. Mm-hmm. So you as a leader, if you're a technical leader, a director, or just the head volunteer, don't be fearful of the word organization. Mm-hmm. I had to get over that myself. Mm-hmm. But to be honest with you, creating the plan and organizing that sets you up so well for success, and everybody involved, everybody around you. So it's very important. Kelvin begins to talk. That's how we started the interview, and he really talks at length about this. So listen in to what Kelvin has to say about pre-production and the plan.
I work with a leadership team and culture that understands, gets the production process, the value of pre-production. So at any given time, we're 6 months to a year ahead in our series calendar planning.
Are you kidding me?
That is how bought in the leadership of the Oaks is. They do that not just so that we can have cool videos, so we can, or have cool sets because they understand how much time it takes. Although, yeah, I'm very grateful for that. But there is a higher purpose behind being intentional about this, being 6 months to 12 months ahead. One time I was teaching a class with my senior pastor, and after I introduced and explained to the class what I did, he jumped in and says, Kelvin and his team, this is what they do each week. They co-lead worship with a worship team and co-preach the message with me. That's so the level cool. of buy-in, but at the same time, I feel that those words represent the heart behind the pre-production process. Yeah. He believes it, and in order for me and my team to do that, he invites us to the conversation. That 6-month to 12-month series calendar doesn't represent only represent services every single week. It represents the conversation that the pastor is going to have with his constituency, with the congregation. What is this relationship between a pastor and his congregation going to look like in a year, right? So we get to map and chart that together. We map out a calendar, 6 to 12 months out, and then we have a programming meeting. Right, a weekly programming meeting. This programming meeting is not just to look at the service for a Sunday. This is the meeting where we now are always looking 2 to 3 series out, so we can start to talk about the big idea. What is pastor's heart? What's the main point for this series? What is God wanting to do, during the series? And then now we have the basic information or the foundational information to go pray and go brainstorm. What is the best creative packaging for this as a series, right? The branding, the experience, the logo, the creative elements, the stage design. Then we are looking at what each week would be like. And when we get to that level, also in that meeting, we start to look at what can each Sunday look like, and maybe start to think, a video testimony would probably be good here. Oh, on this Sunday, we can incorporate an illustration or a special song.
So James, I think I heard him say 12 months.
Right, 12 months. Now that's not for every single detail of the production. That's just the big idea, understanding what's the mission, what's his pastor trying to do, and staying ahead of that. And then it sounds like the last few weeks is when they really dial in and go, this person's going, we need to do a video here, and then maybe the 3 weeks out, they start going, this person's transitioning. 12 months out, they're not doing, Mike needs to be doing announcements. They're just getting the big idea.
Really dive into the specifics of how they plan from week to week, even though they do have a 12-month approach. Not really realistic in our world, but our world is a lot different than theirs. And I think most house of worship folks out there, that isn't their world either. Maybe their culture's not caught up, but I would like to see that even though he's 12 months out or thinking that big, it's a scalable idea. So it can come down, you could shrink that down to whether you plan a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're just talking about creating a plan, getting ahead of the curve a little bit. But let's hear more about the ideas that Kelvin has in the attack of the plan.
Let's start with, what does that meeting look like? The first part of the meeting typically is reviewing the past Sunday, especially if we did something for the first time. It's the first time that we did a song and video interactive special. We're going to evaluate that. We figured out what worked, what didn't work.
Gotcha.
So we always start with that.
Like it.
Then we look at this Sunday.
All right.
Let's get this Sunday mapped out. I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
Then the next part is we now look at at least the next 3 or 4 weeks. 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks out. We're going to hit high-level items. Decisions are being made. The key for the 2 to 3 weeks out is decisions are being made. High-level decisions. Are we good on this video? Are we good on this graphic? Are we good on this illustration? Why? Before we invest all of the time, all of the energy, all the manpower, and then go, oh, I don't like it. That has saved us a tremendous amount of, expedite shipping costs too. By forcing the decision to be made 3, 4 weeks out. Towards the end of the meeting is, all right, let's look at 2 to 3 series out. You'll notice when we're talking about this Sunday on a Tuesday, it's not the first time we talked about that Sunday.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
It's really dotting I's, crossing T's, just confirming, was everybody clear? You're hosting, you're announcing this, promoting this, and then you're praying. We're now going into particulars, nuances, handoffs, how is it transitioned? Review the final order of the cue sheet. Are we good? Is this locked down? And then at the end of that meeting, lockdown.
So it's very cool to see how Kelvin has set that up and that process of pre-production, from the setting of the meeting time to meeting and then locking it down. That's very interesting. I love that. I learned a lot just listening to what he had to say. But now we want to move to phase 2. So out of phase 1, pre-production, into phase 2, which is the execution phase of the production. So we call it production. How do you handle the production? How do you execute, James?
Right. Well, first thing you have to do to execute a production is you have to identify the roles. Who's doing what? As we've said before, if people come to you and go, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, well, that's because you haven't identified what they're supposed to do. When people know what they do it. They don't come bothering you. They don't slow down the production. And when people know what they're supposed to do, they can get better at it. Because they know I'm the lighting director. I need to get better at lighting. I'm the camera operator. I'm not just the camera dude. My job is to tell a story with my camera. So they're able to grow in their specific role. The second thing is that you have to have ample crew. You have to have enough people to run your production. Now, it's going to vary, obviously. We've talked 25 to 25,000. You have to have different crews, but you have to have enough people for 25,000, and you have to have enough people for 25. And when you identify your roles, sometimes you have to have one person do multiple roles, but at least they know that. I'm the audio engineer, but I'm also the lighting director, not the other guy sitting at the end here. He's just focusing on my graphics presentation. And then lastly, I think, John, you have to have communication. Who do I talk to? If something goes wrong, who do I speak to? Do I keep going to the director? Do I keep going and going to my producer? Do I keep going to the guy at the audio mixer? And when everyone knows how to communicate, what you have is focus. People know what they're supposed to do. And when you have focus, you have that unity, and you create that one cohesive product, the one production that is finally, it's complete. It's not everyone's production. It's not the senior pastor's production and then the worship pastor's production and then this person's production. It's our one production.
Yeah, I love it. Kelvin said we don't have time to actually grab every excerpt out of the whole interview, but you can watch that whole interview later. And he says some really, really great things, more than we will show you about these topics. But Kelvin spoke specifically about the unit, about working with volunteers, about how many it takes and how they scale it. Let's hear what he has to say in this specific instance.
Any given Sunday, there's 14 people to pull it off.
Wow.
So there's sound, there's the main sound guy, there's A2. I have 4 camera guys, a director, a switcher, the lighting operator. I have a pro-presenter operator for the lyrics, for the scripture, for the name tags. I have a software called Arena. It's for the a VJ system for our center screen and live content. And then also we live stream the service with a chat room, so we have an online campus host.
Wow, James, he talked about the minimum crew size being 14 people. That's a lot of people to manage one event, one service.
It is, and we often do 10 or more on a weekly, daily basis. And but the interesting thing about our scenario, being at a university, is sometimes we have to have larger events where we have a crew of over 20, and sometimes, a lot of times, we have smaller events where we have 1 to 3 people.
Yeah.
And we have to, and we have the same challenge as him, and I think other houses of worship have to deal with as well, is full-time versus part-time and volunteers.
Yeah.
And you have the different mixture of experiences and skills, and how do you deal with that? Well, the main way to handle it is not to freak out, obviously, but instead to identify the roles. What is your responsibility? If you're not clear as the leader into what the roles are, it's going to be blurry for them. They're not sure, and they're going to come going, I don't know what to do here. You have to clarify the roles, and when you clarify, then they can get better at their specific thing. Then they can move on to a different area of their expertise. So maybe they start maybe in audio. Then they can move, hey, maybe I can get better at lighting, and you can start training them there. And then you get into the training aspect, back to a pre-production, and then you get them back into a production mentality.
Yeah, it's true. And I love his ideas on volunteerism. They do have a few full-time employees in the media crew, at least, but they use a lot of volunteers.
Right.
And I think in the church world, church leadership sees volunteerism as a real tricky thing. They don't want to take advantage, but yet you need a lot of output.
Right.
Kelvin had some great ideas on volunteerism, and here we talked about it.
When I started doing, media for creative arts for the church, I've always approached it with, I'll call it an apologetic perspective in behalf of volunteers. Oh, they're just volunteers.
Right.
I don't want to ask too much. And I'm not saying abuse them,
Right.
But I had to break that in me. Okay.
Interesting.
I had to remember, what was it like when I started? I started as a volunteer. What did it feel like? Did I go, oh, I'm just a volunteer? I was just pumped. I was just excited.
Right.
I wanted to serve. I wanted to play my part.
Okay.
Right? So, what is the common denominator between a full-time staff member, between a volunteer, between an intern?
Okay.
It's because we are excited about putting together a service with the gifts and talents that we have.
Okay.
That is where I have to start every single time. We're a team. We're not, you're a staff member, you're a volunteer.
Okay.
We're a team with a common motivation
Right.
and with a common goal.
All right.
Okay? And I am going to treat you, a staff member and a volunteer, with the same expectations and standards. I'm not saying without, it's like, hey, you come with more skills. Of course, I expect more of you. You come with less experience, or this is your role. But expectations are clear. I've needed to change. I'm not going to treat you less in my mindset.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start off with the apology. Oh, you're a volunteer. You're probably not going to do as well. I'm not supposed to expect as much of you.
Okay.
We have an intensive rehearsal schedule. Okay? The hardest thing I needed to do was to go for it and commit to it.
Okay.
Now it's become culture. I am telling you, this is not about church size. This is not about how much equipment we have. This is about, do you care? Church size doesn't matter. We are representing the most powerful story on the planet. And I'm assuming we all want to present that message, that story, that experience the best way that we can. And I've learned in 20 some odd years of doing this, it's not about the best equipment that is going to give the best experience.
Yeah,
it's
fantastic.
about rehearsal.
Yeah.
Are we prepared to bring the best that we have?
Right.
Volunteer or staff. If you're not rehearsed, if you're not prepared, if you don't know what you're doing, if you were not teed up to slam dunk the camera shot, if you're not teed up to slam dunk running ProPresenter, running the video, playing the slide, running that microphone, okay, that can only happen in rehearsals.
Okay.
Okay? The standard has to be set. I'm not saying crack the whip and be a sergeant. No, but you lead with the heart of excellence. It was hard to get started. Everybody's like, oh, they're volunteers. We're going to ask them, can we give it a try?
Yeah.
When they tasted the win,
Yeah.
we were a solid team. Oh my gosh, I actually was prepared. I knew what I was doing. I did a great job.
Yeah.
It's become culture,
Yeah.
and now we don't settle for anything less.
Wow, those are some powerful ideas that he has
Yes.
in the arena of volunteerism.
There are, and I love the way that he values his volunteers. They're not just assets, they're not just people who show up. He values them, he wants them to do well, and in return, they give their best when they come. They come with an expectation of, I have to do my best. And when you have that culture built in, your production naturally gets better. Having an attitude of excellence when you do things. You're creating the atmosphere. These are things that require no budget, and it doesn't matter what size your house of worship is, but it's something every creative pastor, media pastor can work on.
It's true. And for time's sake, we need to just kind of move on and go to phase 3, which is the post-production phase. So we've talked about pre-production, the planning phase, production, the execution phase, and how you do that and weave your way through some tricky environments, especially with less experienced volunteers and how you need to train them. And now you get to the phase which I think a lot of people leave out or even don't think about, because once the production is over, it's kind of time to turn the lights out. Let's go eat.
And time for Sunday lunch.
And to us, that's not where it ends. Actually, maybe one of the most critical components and phases of the whole event is after the event, because it's great to be able to collect your ideas, write them down, and talk about them right away. It doesn't have to be exhaustive or a very long process, but as you're cleaning up, which cleaning up and being organized is a part of that post-production process, but talking about the immediate assessment that you have and how you value where you landed at the end of the event. Now, I talked with Kelvin, and it was very interesting. Sounds like he's had a paradigm shift as of late. Guys like us, we're very high value on, did all the buttons get pressed right?
Absolutely.
And we're very left brain.
Did we miss a cue?
Yeah, right. So we want it to go perfect. And Kelvin does too, but he talks a little bit right here, and I think it's so important, and that's why we included it in this particular episode, is it's not just about arriving at success being quantified as we did everything right, but where do you land in success? Listen to his ideas here and see what you think.
What I would consider success has actually shifted. I used to count success as how excellent was a service, how many mistakes did we not make, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we nailed all the cues, yes, that was a great service.
Yeah.
It's no longer that for me.
Oh, wow.
It's recently shifted to, has the team grown? You know, I'm looking at every single individual in their roles. I no longer expect perfection. I expect growth. Are they growing? Are they getting better? Is he becoming a better camera person? I know he's passionate about that. Man, the way he's leading the team, the way he rescued, you know, the director from that mistake. Oh man, he killed it.
Yeah.
The team is growing in relationship. You know, they're praying for each other. They know about each other, what's going on, you know, within their walks with the Lord. That's kind of become, you know, like, today was a good Sunday.
Yeah.
The team grew. The team's tighter. They're better. They're taking deeper ownership of this ministry.
I love it, James. Kelvin has great ideas, knows where he wants to go. He leads through a purpose-driven mentality.
He does.
He really has a goal, and he knows where he wants to land. Although he's very sensitive to, this is God's work, and it's all about pointing everyone that you're doing it for and doing it with back to Him. So, man, there's a line there that's sometimes hard to walk. And as left brain guys, you know, the geeks, the guys that we only think about the technical things, we technically speak about everything. It's tough for us to redirect sometimes and show that softer right brain side that is more emotional and connects with the spiritual. So we got to remember that, and that's a very key component to the success. Is don't forget that. It's not part of the 1, 2, 3, but it's really the overarching theme that we're pointing people back to God. We're doing this for a reason, a purpose, and that's very fun. To me, that's what I love, that challenge of balancing both left and right brain per se. But it's really neat to be able to, at the end of the day, when you had the exhilarating moments and you're energized by the production, to say, man, that was successful and it meant something.
Right. That's a great feeling. That's why we do what we do.
It is.
At least in the house of worship.
And that's kind of the whole idea behind, technically speaking, is we want to be geeks, and we want to geek out and nerd out about all the fun stuff, the toys and the wires and all that. But we do it for a purpose. We want to hopefully plant seeds that will help you and it also helps us and just helps us grow as a body and a unit.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So thanks again for tuning in. This was episode 3.
3. Oh.
And I am so excited about the next episodes coming up. We have some fantastic guests lined up, not necessarily creative pastors, but we have some guys from Yamaha, from some of the other companies. We're really going to start getting into gear reviews and talking real nerdy.
All right.
Next 2 episodes. So stay tuned. We'll tease and we'll throw it out there and let you know when those are coming.